It's just her.
We'll call the meeting to order for the New Ulm Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. We'll waive the roll call. We have a full panel present. First item of business, item 2.1 is, I better put the glasses on. Sorry, I'm going to do it today without the glasses. Item 2.1 is the minutes from the March 8th, 2022 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and second. Any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion is carried. Item 3, Economic Development Corporation report. How do I? Can
I can't open that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no attachment to that. Paul Wessel's here, the executive director for that organization. So
Good morning, Paul.
Hi, Dan.
if
Hi, all.
if you have anything to report, if you want to come up to the podium so you're on the mic, that way the people out there listening can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have no written report to submit. I've come on board with the New Ulm Economic Development Corp., which we are now rebranding to the name nubric, NUBRIC, which stands for New Ulm Business Resource and Innovation Center. We figured there was too much confusion between the EDA and the EDC, and we want to make it easy for potential clients to know who does what. The last 60 days has been literally a deep dive to kind of get an assessment of where we're at, what was happening, what wasn't happening, and now we're moving forward with a couple of initiatives. There are two that I can share with you. One I cannot because I'm bound by non-disclosure, but one large program that we're undertaking right now is to get all of our schools, high school and parochial schools, under one consistent STEM education curriculum called Project Lead the Way. 25 years I spent in factory automation and robotics, and what I saw in talking with people at CTE, at MVL, at St. Paul's, at Cathedral, is that we really don't have a uniform presence in our education. So that means that when a manufacturer is considering a place to New Ulm, like New Ulm, we cannot talk to what these kids are getting as far as a curriculum goes because they're different. So the goal of this is to get alignment between all of our students. That way we can talk about New Ulm being a Project Lead the Way community. And that gives us a platform for recruiting prospective businesses, manufacturing businesses to come here. The second big initiative, and I've echoed this to a number of people in the room, is the concern about the slowly declining enrollment of Martin Luther College. Currently, their applications for next year equal this year, but that puts it around 660 to 680 students. There was a time where MLC, or Dr. Martin Luther College, was up around 1,500. And this is endemic of the decline that's going on in our churches. However, one of the things that the college is getting requests from their feeder schools, who they're preparing teachers for, is for their students to have a STEM curriculum. And so there are 3 professors right now that are going to become STEM certified at the college, and therefore then teach students STEM. So in working with Region 9, we're going after a federal economic development grant to build a state-of-the-art robotics lab up on the college campus. Therefore, if we have the college using Project Lead the Way and we have our schools using Project Lead the Way, I think that there's a great deal of potential for us to work together in mentoring opportunities and then bringing in industry. I had a talk with the plant manager at 3M yesterday who was very excited about this. So that's one thing that's going on very well. Let's see. There are a couple of interests from companies in Mankato to expand in New Ulm. These would be more on the retail end, but I cannot, because I'm bound by non-disclosure right now to do that. The other thing I did was this last Friday went over to Red Wing and looked at Red Wing Ignite, which is funded by Launch Minnesota, and got some of their impressions about how they work in and amongst the chamber and the city and the Port Authority and everything else. I was very impressed with them. They do a really, really good job. And they were very helpful in giving us additional resources also. So in short, in 60 days, there's been a lot of information to digest. I don't have all the answers yet, nor will I ever. But I see some natural things, some natural, if you will, swim lanes developing where I think my expertise and the expertise that I've gathered over the years lends itself more to the manufacturing environment than the retail environment. And so perhaps there's some polite delineation there that with bigger projects and all of that, that could be good. The last thing I can talk about is that we're in the early process of starting an investment fund and an angel investment network. And this would be a fund that would look at deal flow, not only here but in the area. But the goal is that if we get businesses to a certain level, that there could be gap funding and gap financing provided to help move that business to the next level. And then with the board of this new angel fund, they would be seasoned with expertise in management and finance and legal and marketing, product development, and intellectual property protection and so on. But we're in the very, very early stages of that. That's my report. Any questions?
Paul, I put you on the spot here.
Go ahead, Dan.
Do you have any idea, because you mentioned MLC early on.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea what kind of economic impact they currently have in our community?
I do. Yeah, there have been a couple of studies done, and as best that we can kind of estimate, given on similar studies, it's between $23 and $24 million a year.
So obviously, their continued success and survival is vital to the economic impact of the entire community.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And given that my dad was a professor there, my brother's a professor there, my sister's a professor there, you know,
no links to the college.
None,
Yeah.
none.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to, you know, they're a single focused mission school, and that's to provide teachers and pastors to the Wisconsin Synod, right? But within that, I think that there are rooms for expansion, such as the STEM curriculum, because of the 26 high schools, I think, 28 high schools that they provide student teachers and teachers to, the feedback coming back is we need students that have been trained in STEM so that when they get out in the field, that they can then teach the grade school and high school students STEM as well. So that's what we're doing. And I also think that there are some opportunities to do some alternate energy projects out there as well, like solar and maybe even wind. But I think my objective is to provide different things. And if you look at the STEM curriculum, for example, I think it could also generate money for the college if the STEM curriculum were offered in summer camps, because you have dorm space there. So kids could come in, and that could be a fee-based thing. So I think it could play pretty well. But again, we're in the really, really early stages. So the next step is Region 9 will be conducting a feasibility study in prepping for this national EDA grant. And so they'll be coming on campus looking at either remodeling a building or breaking ground on a new building, and that will all get baked in to the EDA grant.
I know this is early and like
Yeah.
you said, but what would you foresee possibly the role our EDA commission could play in that, in facilitating some of that?
Well, I don't want to get out over my skis, but a long time ago, 20 years ago, we were working with an agricultural group to build a biodiesel plant. And that didn't go anywhere for various reasons that will remain disclosed. But I've always had a heart for trying to find alternate sources of generating recurring revenue for the college. And I have had discussions with them also about the possibility of an elder care facility right up on the college campus, this integrated type of living. I know right now that Highland Regency's got about 45 to 48 people on the waiting list to get into Highland Regency. So can we do some of that? And again, the college, I think, due to the declining enrollment, is open for more options. But I also think it's a real opportunity for the city and the college to work much more closely.
Well, it could be mutually beneficial, the way it
I
sounds.
think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think so. But I know right now that they're going through a redo of their site plan and everything for the college. But remember too that all the decisions, the big decisions, go through Milwaukee. So it's a slow process. But we've had several meetings already and I've been very encouraged.
Great.
Any other questions? Thank you.
That's not an item we act upon, I take it, the way it looks?
No.
Okay, so moving on then to item 4.1, administrative activities for March 2022.
Great. Good morning, President and Commissioners. You have the report in your packet. I just want to point out a couple items under the public housing program. Note that we do have a physical inspection of our public housing units scheduled for Monday of next week. Because of how we score as a high performer historically, we get an inspection every 3 years. Our last inspection was in 2017, so we were due for an inspection in 2020, but as you know, that was an unusual year. So they were not doing inspections during the COVID pandemic, and now they've started those up again, and they're getting caught up, and so we are now scheduled. So it's been 5 years since a HUD inspector's been through our properties. So we've been working on going through our units and making repairs and preparing for that as best as we can, and we'll see how it goes. Under the EDA fund, just note that the fund balance decreased in March due to 3 small business grant payments, the donation the EDA approved to Brown County Historical Society for their summer day camp program, as well as consultant payments starting now to Wendy Anderson and what is now nubric. So I believe Nicole will be coming to you next month to do a cash transfer from Garden Terrace to replenish that fund. And we'll have some property tax revenue coming in as well. So that comes in what month usually? May or June? June. Otherwise, no activity in our other programs to report.
I'll offer a motion to accept the Economic Development Authority administrative activities for the month of March 2022. I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Item 5.1, award bid for Broadway House Site Improvement Project to Define Edge LLC in the amount of $3,753.75.
Okay, so about a year ago, I brought this project to you for approval to go out and solicit bids. The reason this project came up originally was that we were having some problems with the planters around the trees in front of Broadway House on 3rd North. They're made out of landscaping block, and they're starting to shift, as the trees have grown and the roots are pushing against that block. I'm having trouble getting bids on that part of the project, but I also wanted to do something with the edging around the other landscaped areas on the property. So I actually ended up splitting this into 2 projects. I was able to get bids on the landscaping edging part of the project, and I would like to move forward with that. And then we're still looking at doing something around those trees because it needs to be fixed. We were looking at doing a poured concrete wall around those because we would like to save those trees, and engineering thought that that would be stronger and better able to handle the root issue than the block. But I've tried 3 or 4 times to get bids on that, and I've not gotten any bids. So we may need to look at doing landscaping block again. I'm going to continue working on that and hopefully get something figured out this year so we can get those done. So in any case, on this part of the project, we did receive 2 bids, and you can see Definite Edge LLC was the low bidder, and I would like to move forward on that and get that done this year. And that's a capital fund project, so we'll use our capital fund grant to pay for it.
I'll make the motion to award the bid for the Broadway House Site Improvement Project to Definite Edge in the amount of $3,753.75.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any other additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 5.2 is the EDA April 12, 2022 claims.
Anything unusual this month?
I'll just note it's a higher claims total this month due to our property tax payment to the county.
I'll offer the motion to approve the EDA April 12, 2022 claims list.
Second.
We have a first and second. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 6.1, approve a lease agreement with Michelle Seifert of Social, Inc. for EDA-owned property located at 326 North Broadway from April 15, 2022 to October 31st, 2022 for a rental fee of $150 a month.
All right, this is similar to their request last year. Last year was the first year this particular food truck rented our lot, and they would like to do that again this year. It worked out well for them. They need a place to store their food truck when it isn't in use, where they can plug it in so they can keep the food in there and keep it refrigerated. But they do intend to operate the food truck on the property occasionally as well, working around the 2 leases we already have in place with Ted Bergstrom with B Concessions and Tommy's Tacos. All of the food trucks agree it's in their best interest not to operate when someone else is operating, so they'll just kind of work together and coordinate their schedules that way. We haven't had any issues with the food trucks. Any feedback I've received has been positive from the community. They like having the food trucks there, and I did add 2 additional electrical outlets so that all 3 trucks could plug in at the same time if needed. But we have room for 4 food trucks. We have outlets now for four food trucks. So we'll see. Maybe someone else will come forward.
But the intent is they're operating one at a time?
That's the intent and the feedback I've received from the 3 food trucks. They don't really want to compete with each other.
What do we do about garbage? I've been to many food trucks and you just see, it's all throwaway styrofoam, plastic crap, and there's often overflowing garbage and crap blowing around the whole property. Do you see that as an issue?
You know, I haven't seen it as an issue. We don't have garbage containers there for them, so I don't know if they bring their own.
It's mostly grab and go. There really no one sits there to eat. They grab their food.
There's no picnic
There's
tables there or anything.
Yeah, that's what I
They
thought
just-
is.
It's grab and go.
I think it's like people pull up, get their food and
Leave.
go on their way, yeah, so. But that is an important thing. As we get more vendors there, that might become more of an issue, so it's just something probably to keep an eye on. And if it does become an issue, then we may have to stipulate within the lease that they provide their own
Garbage
refuse removal or whatever, yeah.
So we've communicated this with Ted Bergstrom and with Tommy's Tacos.
Yeah, well, they had signed a lease in previous years too, so
Yeah.
they've been, the folks from Soziel have been there in the past, so
Okay.
I think,
Yeah, I mean, did I specifically reach out to them and let them know another food truck is coming? No, I don't,
no,
I don't see the need for that.
I think they're all aware of each other's presence. I don't think that that's an issue.
I'll offer the motion to approve the lease agreement with Michelle Seifert of Social Inc. for the EDA-owned property at 326 North Broadway from April 15th to October 31st, 2022, with a rental fee of $150 a month.
I'll second.
We have a first and 2 seconds. No. Is there any official, or any additional discussion on the matter? A hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion is carried. Item 6.2, commercial property rehab loan for, I'm going to butcher this, I know, Doppelleichen Vineyards, Inc., LLC?
You got it right.
Oh, okay. Pressure was on.
Okay, President and Commissioners, this loan is for Doppelleichen Vineyards. The properties that the loan will be used for are 511 3rd Street North and 513 3rd Street North, but the property overall is under 227 North Minnesota. That's the original building, and then these were kind of add-ons to the back side of that building. Was the former KNU, or was it KNUJ or KXLP? KXLP office and an insurance office, Stan Steffel Insurance.
So it's that corner, Minnesota,
Yep,
3rd
and then going
North.
back toward the alley along 3rd North there. So the owner of that property would like to demo those back two additions and construct a new addition onto the building. Those two properties in the back are in disrepair, and he looked at rehabbing them versus demo and has made the decision to go forward with demolition. So the total cost of the project is over $600,000, and, you know, we can fund half of the project, and we're well under that. So he's asking to borrow $74,900. Terms would be 10 years at an interest rate of 2%, with the conditions that the property owner would sign a promissory note and mortgage, provide a personal guarantee for the note, and at closing, pay the costs associated with the loan transaction. We do have funding available for this loan if approved. The loan application is attached, and property owner is here if you have any questions for him.
I'm assuming this lien would be a subordinate lien to like a first mortgage?
Yes.
Okay.
Heather, you know, looking at the description of the property here, I can't find it right this minute, but it described as 2 offices and then a couple of apartments. Now, I went and looked at that property. It said the apartments are on the 2nd and 3rd floor. There is no 2nd and 3rd floor.
The area that's being demoed, there is no 2nd and 3rd floor.
Right.
The existing historic building will remain intact. That story building.
Yeah.
And the one-story structures to the New Ulm north of those will be demoed and replaced.
Oh, okay.
So those are really almost annex buildings to the original building, and those are the ones that are really the focus of.
And there is a demo permit in place.
Yep,
for those as of
With any of this, and I'm not, there's really no off-street parking per se at this time, is there? And I would presume with what you're proposing to do, that's not going to be, it's not going to be any different than, okay.
So Paul, I was looking at the total project cost of $632,500. And just our $74,900, how much more funding do you need besides this yet to complete the project?
Should we have him come up to the mic? State his name and address for the record, and
Make
that
it
way
official.
those watching at home can hear him.
Okay, Paul Nyers, 58608 County Road 21, New Ulm. I am hoping this was just an initial estimate that was done to show that there's definitely more than 600,000. I haven't gone through value engineering on the project. There are some opportunities to shrink the project a little bit, but there's obviously more than $150,000 in costs and adding on to or demo and replacing. About the total square footage within the parcel of 227 North Minnesota is about 1,500 square feet. We'll plan to go through value engineering. I do have funding in place in personal funds, as well as there's a grant in place, reimbursement grant from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture for 25% of the costs. So I believe I have everything in place to move forward with the project.
Well, it sounds like an exciting addition to downtown.
Thank you.
Oh, what might the new building look like? What would it be made out of?
I'm planning a SIP panel construction, very efficient sandwich of OSB with rigid foam insulation. Because of that, there are some other programs that I'm looking at. There's a PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy. That's a program that I'm likely to utilize. USDA has REAP grants. That's something that I'll apply for. It's not a guarantee, but it's something that'll help long-term profitability of the overall business. So the SIP panels is one of the things that dovetails very nicely into those programs. It's something that the state really likes to see. Exterior, I'm planning for stucco at present. It kind of blends in with the brick that's in the general area. It is a building with a little bit of height to give me some on the alley side in order to give me a little bit of extra height to work with for taller tanks and different things like that.
It's not going to be ugly.
It is not going to be ugly because I do not like ugly.
Are there businesses in that corner space right now?
Both spaces are currently vacant.
Okay.
Paul, I see that, there's a dramatic change in the estimate of the cost here, estimated total project cost there. We initially had a number of 150,000, and it got revised to 632,500. But
the initial was to rehab the buildings, and as I got into there, that estimate was low, and by the time I got done adding on little things, it's like I still would end up with an old building, inefficient, not the SIP panel construction. Probably still a little bit on the ugly side too, because you'd just be patching over the top of patches on an old building versus taking and doing a new structure. Another issue with that is that I need certain features built into the building for efficient wine production. One of the things off the top of my head is trench drains for removing of waste, and trying to integrate them into an old building versus taking and having them designed in from the beginning will give me a better, more efficient production space for the long term.
And one more question. I see, does that building have steam in it now? Steam service?
It does.
Okay,
and
so you're all right on that.
It actually is a feature that I find very attractive because I don't have to buy a steam generator. The steam is used in wine production for sanitation purposes, for one of the things it's very useful for is maintaining barrels, and so I will be utilizing the steam for that as well as for the heating of the space.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the application too, and it talks about a private lender relationship. Has that process been completed? Heather, maybe that's a question for Heather.
Can you tell me where you're looking?
Item 4. Right above the signature area.
Yeah, that would apply if there was a private lender involved. In this case, there isn't. He's self-funding his
Okay.
portion.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think at one time with these rehab loans, that was kind of a requirement, but we really kind of refocused on that to open that door to looking toward multiple sources. I think the main driver is that we're putting in a portion of our funds, and we just want to make sure the facilitation of this entire project is correctly funded. We don't really care which sources.
So
per
I had to
se.
do some of the work that the lender normally would do
Right, right.
with the credit check and running the O&E report so that I can provide that to the city attorney to make the
Right, and I
create
don't
the
know if
loan
you,
document.
do you have a proposed valuation of the completed project at a price at any sort?
Not
No.
at present. I would definitely will be
That'd be,
part of the overall. In fact, I believe. Well, I won't go there.
well, if nothing else, the tax man will come and tell you what it's worth. So one other question. So how are you going to facilitate the changing of palates where it's so highly focused on drinking beer to drinking wine in this community? I'm saying that tongue in cheek. I hope you know that.
I believe that this will be a broader tourism draw. I also believe that in general, palates are elevating.
Yes.
our
Yes.
wine drinkers in New Ulm.
No, I think this will be a welcome addition to our downtown community. I really do. So.
Well, on that note, I will offer a motion to approve with conditions a $74,900 commercial property rehab loan to Doppelike and Vineyards LLC.
Second.
We have a first and second. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. All right, we are on down to item 7.1. Funding Hope Housing Foundation for a workforce housing project.
Council President, or Commission President, Commissioners, before you have a request from Hope Housing Foundation for $123,850 to help acquire the land, do the soil borings, environmental, and survey. This project is going to be, phase 1 will be a 27-unit building, and it will be workforce housing. So to get into the building, you'll have to have, I think it's 75 or 80% of area median income to get into the building. So that'll help get, your first line workers, somewhat affordable housing for them. There will be a phase 2 to this project, which would be another residential unit, roughly 52 units on top of that, plus 4 townhomes, so 8 additional homes that would front Maplewood. Total project costs will be 6.4. They are 6.4 million. They are looking at PACE funding. Once they acquire the property and can do their drawings, they will submit that to PACE to see if their project is eligible. They've done this in another community in the city of Laverne and gotten PACE funding for that. So what that does is allows certain elements of the building to be repaid, and that will be assessed to their property tax. So it's 100% of those of those items will be funded through PACE and will be assessed to them, so over a 20-year period. We did also apply for a Minnesota Housing and Finance grant. We should know by the end of the month if they receive that, so that'd be $400,000 in funding. That's kind of the other thing that's holding up them applying for PACE 2. They don't know if that specific portion of the funding will be coming in or not, but they will do the project regardless if that funding comes in. To the EDA, what we would do is, if you agree or vote to help them with the land purchase, which again is about 2% of the overall project cost, then when we do the tax abatement portion of it, the EDA would be paid back probably over a 10 to 12-year period to recoup that funding. We did the same thing with when DLC bought their property. We paid for the land and paid ourselves back through the tax abatement. So while it looks like you're granting the money at this point, you would be paying yourself back over about 10 years.
Chris, is that second phase multifamily, would that be workforce housing as well?
Yes.
Okay, so the entire multifamily would be subject to the workforce housing restrictions as far as rents, okay. And the 6.4 million, is that for the entire three-phase? That's just for this first phase?
For the first phase.
I was doing the math, and I thought if they could pull that off for 6.4 million, I'm going like, wow, we got to get these guys into town more.
Yep.
Okay. And we can use abatement with the PACE grant because that's an assessment grant too, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can work those in tandem. That's a really important thing to note, I think, too, because isn't that also the project with the winery, they're looking for the PACE grant as well?
Yeah, and there's some things on the city side that we would have to do a joint powers agreement with the St. Paul Port Authority. The council would be in charge of that, but the Port Authority doesn't like doing those unless they have a project in the pipeline.
Yep.
So once,
It's the cart and the horse.
once they submit their application, then we would start that process.
Sure. Now, are we, with the abatement, is that going to be with all local taxing authorities, or is just with the city?
So this one will be just for the city.
Okay.
I know Sleepy Eye had asked when they did their project, but I think when they work on their second project, which is a larger unit, that's when we would look at asking the county for their portion to help with that funding.
Okay. No, I just personally think this is a definite step in the right direction, addressing some of our ongoing housing needs. So I'm glad to see this getting to this point in its development, so.
And Dan, I bet it shows other prospective builders, operators of things like this, that it's a successful environment here.
I think what we show here is that the willingness, and I commend the city, for stepping up with looking at the abatement, because I think traditionally tax abatements is always, that's for businesses and not for housing, and I think we've kind of broken through that wall with the housing being such a critical need for workforce development and for employment. We have to think in these terms. So I'm glad that we're moving ahead at this, and I think I hope this is the first of a number of projects. I've read up on this Hope Foundation, and they're very, very legitimate. I mean, they do wonderful things in the communities that they've gone into. So I think we're very fortunate that they're looking toward us, and that we're responding in such a way that I'm hopeful we can make this thing happen. So, which obviously, this is going back to when our last housing study, we're really in no different, we're in a worse predicament, if anything, if you look at what's going on in the economy right now with supply issues and shortages of housing and inventories and that. So we have to continue to address this. So I think this is just a definite step in the right direction, a big step.
I'll offer the motion to approve the funding to Hope Housing Foundation, the amount of $123,850 for a workforce housing project.
I'll second.
First and second, is there any additional discussion on this matter? A hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Item 8.1, Economic Development Activity Report for March activities.
Okay, I'll just note again that the New Ulm Partnership is having a strategic planning session later this month. That'll be at Turner Hall. The childcare team is in the process of drafting a community action plan, as well as planning for a community town hall in May, where we'll be able to roll that plan out to the public. I wanted to have a discussion on an opportunity that we've learned about through this process. There's a new pod model that's a new licensing opportunity for family licensed childcare providers to share space. Up to 4 providers can share space under this model. And I looked at available properties in New Ulm, and a group of us actually went and looked at a property. And those involved in that tour felt that that building was feasible for this pod model. If it's something that we get direction to continue pursuing, the total project cost to acquire the building and do the rehab needed to turn it into a facility that would work for childcare, we're looking at about $500,000 roughly. There are grants available, several different grants that if we move forward, we would apply for all and every grant that we can find to help fund the project. So I guess I just wanted to open that for discussion and get some direction from the board if this is something you want us to continue pursuing, and if so, talk about next steps in that process.
Was the feedback or the ones looking at any like actual childcare providers or
We
those
would have to recruit providers to go into the space, but I think Chris and I talked about, even if we started with 2 providers in the space, it's still feasible. If it was fully utilized, it would add about 48 childcare spots. Each provider can have 12 children under their family license, and each provider can have two infants. And I think we would want to look at, there are providers out there that just don't take infants, that if they were going to go into this space, we would require that they maximize their infant spots because that's the most critical need. So we've talked about those sorts of things. I mean, ideally, we would get to 4, but even if we started with 2, we feel it's feasible to move forward.
And then, so you would recruit. So these could potentially, you're looking for new people, not those who are currently doing daycare?
It could be either. I mean, I have heard feedback from current family providers that they could take more kids, but they don't have the space in their home. So this could allow them to move into this space and expand and maximize their spots. Or it could be a new provider going into the business that doesn't want to run a business out of their home. Because it can be disruptive to your home life if you have a spouse that has the day off, or your kids don't have school, or your kids are home for summer. They maybe don't want this happening in their home. It's it's
Well,
a little
and the
invasive.
costs
And
to convert it, and, yeah.
yeah, you don't have any privacy, and there's issues. So people involved in the tour, I had someone from Brown County Licensing who would be the licensing agency for these providers, which is nice because daycare centers or childcare centers are licensed through the state, and that's a longer process. It's a quicker process to go the family licensed route. The county provider liked the building. We had the fire marshal there. We had the building official there. We had our EDA president there looking at the space, city manager, myself, and a few others. So we had the right people there, and everyone agreed this building could work. So
And I would just add, if for whatever reason the pod model doesn't work out the way we would, rehab the building, it could lend itself to a potential expansion, looking at, a center to come in and operate as a center instead of the pod model. So we're not limiting the options. It's just at this point, I think the pod model would be an easier way to get someone, some providers together.
Yeah, and I think this was a really important meeting for us to get out there and kind of get an assessment of what the community has available today. I think our panel, our group, we should really sit down and have a serious discussion about, okay, from a financial aspect, how much of a financial commitment should we make toward that goal of providing childcare? And if we decide $500,000 is what it's going to take, then I think that's our starting point. And then from there, I think we want to make an assessment as far as what are we getting for the bang for our buck. And I'm sitting in on the RCCIP meetings. Did I say that right? Because, okay, there's so many letters today and acronyms or whatever, but, and I think one of the assessments we've made so far is the most critical need is in infant care. And that's where the pod model kind of falls a little short just because the infant slots are fewer. So my initial thought is can we get more infant slots for our financial commitment if we look at other possible solutions? And I just want to keep that discussion open. I don't want us to make any decision today about what we want to do or not do. I think this is a great first step. And this just says, okay, we have this building, this could work. We were thinking a maximum of 3 pods at this particular site, right? Isn't that what we kind of determined?
I think
You
we
can
can
do
do
4.
4.
We could do 4 in that building.
One of the trade-offs with those is, the discussions is, well, they can't all be eating lunch at the same spot at the same time or being on the playground. So there's some definite coordination. And if you have 4 versus 2, that kind of coordination might be easier for those licensors to facilitate the care of their children. So that to me is another consideration to make. Would we split the money 250 and have 2 sites as opposed to 1 and have 2 pods? And could that be an easier way to do it too? So that's where I'm just hoping we continue and play our role in that discussion part, because I think at the end of the day, it sounds like they're going to come to us. We're going to be providing funding for some of this. So how can we best maximize our return to provide the best amount of daycare spots available for the most need for the dollar spent? I guess that's my thought process. But I mean, that's a great building, very sound. I mean, it's like a bunker, concrete, and so, I could see little kids running through there, whatever, just walking through there. So I think it could be a great possibility, and it's off the highway. It's quiet. I think it would be a great spot. But I'm just wondering if, and again, we're in a really tough time. There's not a lot of properties for sale right now, even on the commercial side. So.
I would just like to eventually learn more about the business model on how a pod works, how the people that are running their daycare out of there, how much rent they pay, how is this going to cash flow to make the building sustainable for the future?
Yeah, and First Children's Finance is working on that financial analysis for me, and I'm going to be touching base with them after this meeting to let them know if this is something we want to continue pursuing. And they were going to look at that and what would be a reasonable amount for us to charge each provider for rent. We want to keep the rent low enough that they are willing to go in there, but cover our cost of utilities. And
at the same time, we have to be careful not to give the providers that go in there a large economic benefit compared to our current providers. I think we have to keep that in mind.
We got to walk a tightrope there, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's exactly what those folks do. They do the financial analysis to see what's feasible, and they've done this sort of thing in other communities. So it's not like they haven't been successful in their other endeavors. So I look forward to seeing what they have to say about it. But
Well, and I appreciate the outside of the box thinking, as well. I mean, that's really what we were looking for to come from these meetings with RCCIP, is to come up with some options. And I mean, the fact exists that we are needing spaces now. We have a property available. To not continue to explore any and all options, I think would be silly at this point. So I'll just be curious to see what your conversations come to in the next 30 days.
okay.
And different topic. Looking, I wasn't able to get the quotes on the agenda for this month, but just so you can start mulling it over, I am asking to get quotes for getting Garden Terrace appraised. Looking at that to potentially sell at some point. Just looking at, going to run the numbers, kind of look at it, if it's feasible, kind of looking at interest rates, if we can get a good value for it and put that money in the bank and essentially have the same return on investment and have zero overhead, it might be beneficial to us. And then we would have money for projects like this or future housing projects available if we need to go that route. But again, by no means is getting an appraisal forcing us to
No.
go down that route, but just so we have those options.
We've done that before, and I think that's a prudent step to take, just to always weigh and assess our positions. No, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, so that'll be on the next month's agenda.
Okay, and then getting back to the report, the commercial property rehab loan application that was pending is the one you approved earlier in the meeting. Small Business Incentive Grant Program, as I mentioned, 3 grants were paid out in March, each in the amount of $10,000. 2 new applications were received and have been placed on the waiting list until funds become available. Those were applications received in March. I've received another 2 applications in April already. So we had entertained the idea of, if we had a strong enough waiting list, potentially putting more money into that for this year. If that's something you'd like to consider, I could put it on the agenda next month for approval. And then, let's see. Just wanted to mention that Chris and I had some training on the new GIS software, and we have been working on updating the city website with available commercial properties. So if you have the opportunity to go on and look at that, you'll see those there. So we're still working on some edits to the website to take the chamber listings off and start using our own listings. And then just wanted to note that 40 business outreach visits were completed during the month of March. It was an active month.
Heather, what's the general feel from your visits? I mean, that's 40 things that you don't give me 40 different answers, but
Yeah, the general feedback I'm getting is positive. People appreciate that the city's taking the time to reach out and visit with existing businesses, that we're not just focusing on trying to get new businesses to town, but that we care about the businesses that are already here and contributing to our community. I met with someone yesterday that's been in business 53 years, and it's the first visit they've had. So that's the feedback I'm getting overall. They're just really appreciative that we're reaching out.
Sounds like you had a busy month. I'll make a motion to accept the Economic Development Activity Report for March 2022 activities.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing no, we'll call for the vote then to accept the report. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Which brings us to item 9, which is adjournment. We are adjourned.